File systems. In previous lessons, we discussed the basics of the Microsoft Windows operating system. Now, in this lesson, we will discuss about file management system in Windows 10. After completing this lesson, you will be able to understand basic concepts in file management. Also, you will be able to understand the purpose of file systems and also to compare different file systems. Storage devices were covered in a previous lesson. Text files, images, videos, presentations, databases are all stored as files on PCs and smartphones. They take up space in storage. It is important to know how these files are stored in those storage devices. What happens if you cannot find where your files are? What if you cannot even locate the operating system? File systems are used to keep track of all the files stored on a computer. So what is a file system? Let's try to find what is the meaning of a file in a computer before moving on to file systems. A file is a collection of related data that is stored on secondary or non-volatile storage devices such as a magnetic disk, optical disk, or tapes. It is a data collection method that is used as a medium for providing input to and receiving output from that program. A file in general is a sequence of bits, bytes, or records whose meaning is defined by the creator and users of that file. Every file has a logical location where it is stored and retrieved. A computer file is a basic storage unit. That is, a file is a container that stores programs and data. The majority of the files we use contain data or information in a specific format like a document, chart, or image. All the data are written into and read from the file. A file can be treated as a single entity and is referenced by a name. Directories help in the storage and organization of files on a computer. In Windows, it is known as folders. Folders can also store other folders known as subfolders. File extension. The file extension informs the user and the operating system of the type of file and is used for internal cataloging. The file's extension is typically a period followed by 2 or 4 characters. For example, we can consider doc, docx, ppt, ppts, jpeg, png, mp3 file extensions. How do I make files extensions visible in Windows 10? There are two options. First one is through File Explorer. You can go to View tab and do the changes. If not, through the Control panel, you can go to File Explorer options and you can do the changes. Initially, in this image, you can see there is no file extension. However, once we do the modification, we can see the file extensions. For example, we can see .htm, then .jpg, then .txt, and .docx file extensions. Let's see how we can do it. You can see my test run folder. It is in desktop. There's a folder called test. Inside that I have test run. And you can see my files. There are some web pages, images, text file, and also a document. If I want to show the file extension, what I can do, I can go to view. Then I can select file name extensions. Now you will be able to see the file extensions. Other than that, here you can see the type also. Option 2, go to Control Panel and select File Explorer options. You can see several tabs. Select View. And if you go down, you can see an option called Hide Extension for non-file types. If I want to hide the extensions, I can take yes. But if not, if I want to show the file extensions, then I can untick it. Now I'm going to apply the changes. So here you can see the file extensions. Again, if I want to hide the extensions, what I need to do, I can go to here under View tab and I can untick this. So again, you will be hiding your file extensions. Let's move on to file systems. What is a file system? File systems are used by computers to organize data on storage media and provide easy access to data stored in those media. An index of a book can be found here in this figure. The key terms are listed along with their location or page number. We can read the content by going to the address listed in the index. Similarly, a file system can be thought of as an index that keeps track of the physical location of all the files stored on storage media. The file system manages the folder structure too. It also defines the syntax for the file's path. File systems governs how files are named as well as the maximum size of each file and the total storage capacity that can be accommodated. Files in storage media are stored in sectors. A sector is a group of bytes, typically 512 bytes, that serves as the physical storage's smallest addressable unit. Here, unused sectors are used to store data. In this figure, you can see the tracks and sectors. Groups of sectors are known as blocks. In this figure, you can see how multiple sectors are mapped into a block. Sectors is the smallest addressable unit in physical storage. Then blocks are the file system's smallest addressable unit. Usually, a file system operates as blocks and not as sectors. Modern file systems use block sizes from 1 to 128 sectors, that is 512 to 65,536 bytes. In this example, you can see how multiple files are stored in a set of blocks. Block 0 holds a folder file. Block 1 has read.txt file and block 2 has shop.jpg file. For the files in the folder, basic details such as the file name, last modified date, read and write access details, block details are kept in the table as shown here. Similarly, all of this information is saved in a file system. It keeps track of file names, sizes, and positions, as well as set the block size and fragment information. For example, if the read.txt file is updated and if there is insufficient space in block 1, it will be saved in a different block with free space. As a result, a portion of the block is saved in block 3. Therefore, the table has been updated as shown here. You can see block 1 and 3 are mentioned for read.txt file. This also occurs in the file system. The file system also stores information about directory hierarchies. The root directory can be found in this figure. A root directory is usually present on a drive or a volume. There are files and subdirectories or subfolders within the root directory. Read.txt and shop.jpg files can be found here, as well as the subfolders term docs and vehicle. As shown in this figure, the details of the files within the subdirectories are also kept. As shown, some of the files are stored in multiple blocks, which may or may not be in consecutive blocks. If we use the search box just to the right of the start button, it offers quick access to the local file system. As mentioned before, the file system maintains the name, data, and meta information like file creation, date and time, current size, last modified date and time, the position of the files, sector block size, fragment information, and protection information. The protection attribute assigns and controls the file's access rights to read, write, and execute. Also, details of directory hierarchies are maintained. Most common type of file systems in Windows are NTFS and FAT. Other than that, there is REFS, which is Microsoft's next generation file system. Linux and Mac OS each have their file system. FAT is an abbreviation for the file allocation table. It is named after its organizational method, which is the file allocation table. It is one of the simplest types of file systems. FAT is inherited from old DOS and extended to FAT32. It has a file system descriptor sector or the boot sector, a file system block allocation table, also known as the file allocation table, a root folder, and plain storage space to store files and folders. Here you can see the structure of the FAT file system. A partition boot sector is located at the front of the disk and contains information used by the file system to access disk data. Master boot record, for example, uses the partition boot sector on the system partition to load the operating system kernel files. Following the partition boot sector is a super block, which is a small fixed size cluster containing the file system's metadata like version information and the total number of blocks. Then we have FAT area for the file allocation table. The file allocation table is a collection of block indices that map out blocks on the hard disk. 2 copies of the FAT are kept to protect the volume in case one becomes damaged. The root folder has a fixed number of entries and is located in a specific location. It contains the first block of each file and folder on the root, as well as an entry for each file and folder. Each of these entries contains the name, size, first block location, and data type. The file allocation table and the root folder must be stored in a fixed location so that the files needed to start the system can be correctly located. The rest of the disk is divided into blocks that hold file data. The numbers in FAT12, FAT16, or FAT32 stand for the number of bits used for a file system block. Here, FAT12 can be used up to 4096 different block preferences. FAT16 can be used up to 65,536 different block preferences. Similarly, for FAT32. Here, FAT12 refers to 12-bit file allocation table. Storage devices use different versions of FAT file system. For example, FAT12 is used in old floppy disk. Then FAT16 and FAT32 are used in flash memory or USB drives. FAT32 is a mature file system. Up until MS-DOS 3.30, FAT12 was the primary file system for Microsoft operating systems. The exFAT file system is a newer file system that is used in situations where NTFS does not work well. For example, it is used on flash drives when they do not support NTFS. exFAT drives are faster at writing and reading data than FAT32. NTFS. NTFS refers to New Technology File System. It was introduced for the Windows NT system and is the major file system for Windows operating system. It is the default file system used in Windows 10. NTFS is extensible and supports new file properties like access control, encryption, indexing, compression. Encrypted file system or EFS allows file level encryption. That is, individual files and folders can be encrypted rather than encrypting the full disk. Let us consider the structure of NTFS. First, have partition board sector sits at the front of the disk and contains information that the file system uses to access the disk data. Then we have master file table or MFT. A master file table contains all the information about the file and directories. For example, the name, size, and allocation. In NFT, each file or directory has at least one record. There are other system files than the MFT in NTFS. They are all hidden from view on the NTFS volume. It contains log files, volume label, volume version, root folder name, and security files. REFS refers to Resilient File System. It is the latest development of Microsoft. It is currently available in Windows 8 servers and Windows 10 Pro. It is more resilient against data corruption. When reading or writing a file, REFS examines the checksum to ensure that it is correct. Aside from that, the ext file system is used in Linux systems. It supports basic Unix operations and structure. For example, there are versions like ext2fs, that is second extended file system, ext3fs, that is third extended file system. It supports long file names up to 250 characters. Also, new file types like immutable files can be created. Furthermore, journaling is enabled where a log of all file system changes is maintained. Then the Apple file system or APFS is the default file system for Mac computers. In June 2016, Apple file system was announced as a replacement for HFS Plus, which had been used since 1998. It optimized for SSD storage. It supports full disk encryption, also known as whole disk encryption, which means that everything on the disk is encrypted. However, the master boot record or MBR or a similar area of a bootable disk is not encrypted. As you may be aware, Windows 10 does not support APFS by default. To open files on APFS drives, we must first install third-party file system drivers. Similarly, by default, Mac does not support NTFS. How to check a file system of a drive in Windows 10? There are different ways to check the file system of a hard drive. They are as follows. First, you need to go to File or Windows Explorer. Then right-click on the selected drive and select Properties from the drop-down menu. Check the first system mentioned on the General tab. You can see the file system type. Here it is NTFS. Other than that, you can use the disk management. To open disk management, search for Create and Format hard disk partitions in Control Panel in Windows 10. There, the type of the file system is mentioned with the volume and other details about the drive. You can see those details in this figure. Other than that, you can get those information through the command prompt. You can open command prompt and enter the following command. Here it is important to mention the drive. So if I want to get more details about this E drive, I can enter drive E with the command and I will get the details of drive E. You can see the details of my drive E. So if you need to get details of drive C, then you have to use C drive. So then you will get the details of drive C. Now it is the time to do this activity. Comparatively analyze the advantages and disadvantages of FAT32 and NTFS. Now let's talk about disk fragmentation, a collection of files that are scattered across a hard drive platter rather than being in one continuous location is referred to as file fragmentation or disk fragmentation. When information is deleted from a hard drive and small gaps are left behind to be filled by new data, fragmentation occurs. If the gaps are too small, the remaining information is saved in other available gaps. Because the read-write head accessing the data must find all the fragments of a file before it can be opened or executed, the fragmentation causes slow access time. In this image, you can see the file fragmentation. Initially, you can see a continuous file without any gaps. But later on, when you are storing files, sometimes you delete certain files, you do certain modifications, and then gaps are introduced. You can see the files are not stored continuously. There are some gaps. And the files are also broken and stored in different places. So same file is continuously not stored as shown in this figure. So then what is defragmentation? Defragmentation is the process of reorganizing the data on a hard drive to improve the access to the data and prevent file fragmentation. For example, we can consider the defragmentation utility in Windows, that is Microsoft's defrag. Windows 10 automatically defragments mechanical drives. The general rule has always been that you should avoid defragging solid-state drives or SSDs. And it is critical to not to shut down the system before the file system defragmentation is completed. If the system is shut down before the process is completed, the file system defragmentation must begin again. How to defragment your hard drive in Windows 10? Open the disk optimization tool by searching for optimize or defrag in the taskbar. Then select your hard drive and click Analyze. However, please note that Windows 10 will handle it automatically, so you do not need to worry about it. To summarize what we have discussed up to now, we discussed about file system, its uses, then we discussed about FAT and and NTFS. Also, we discussed about some other file systems too. So in the next lesson, you will learn about device drivers. Thank you.